Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming tonight. I heard there's a debate on TV, but pay no mind to that. You guys are here tonight. So thanks for coming. My name is Rob. I organize Idea to IPO. We've been doing events in Silicon Valley for many, many years. We always have a busy, busy calendar of events. I'd like to highlight two events that are coming up. September 17th, how to get seed funding for your early stage startup. That's all the way up in San Francisco. September 19th, Deep Learning 101, that's in Sunnyvale. Check out the details for those events and all of our events on our website, idea.toipo.com. We launched officially on February 1st, 2010. At that time, we had no members and no events on our calendar. At this stage, we have over 60,000 members among all our meetup groups in the Bay Area. We've completed over 2,100 events. By any standard, by any measure, we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in Silicon Valley, bar none. We're actually the most active, most prolific startup event organization in the history of Silicon Valley. I'm not bragging or anything, I'm just stating a fact.
It's true.
Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship, support entrepreneurs, build community, and provide value in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. To that end, we provide content that is practical, actionable, and relevant, stuff you can actually use to succeed as entrepreneurs. We believe in building community because Silicon Valley is an aspirational ecosystem. It attracts people from all over the world who come here to do great things. Who here is not originally from Silicon Valley or the Bay Area? Who here was born and raised in Silicon Valley or the Bay Area? 4 natives, including our moderator. Well, let's hear it for the natives. So whether you were born and raised here or just arrived last night, it is important for us to provide multiple channels for you to meet people, build relationships, and grow your network. In addition to our content-oriented events throughout the week, we also have some fun events on Friday nights. The next one actually is tomorrow, Friday the 13th. We have a TGIF mixer, thank God it's Friday, / Friday the 13th celebration. So if you're free on Friday the 13th, tomorrow, come check it out. You're all invited. It's free, and hope to see you there. With regard to value, it's important that we provide value at each and every one of our events. So we make sure that our events are affordable because we know many entrepreneurs are struggling financially. And at each and every one of our events, we make sure that we provide a delicious buffet meal. Is that a delicious buffet meal? Yeah. Well, let's hear it for Perkins Coie for sponsoring that delicious buffet meal. I know you guys were expecting Costco pizza, but that's next week, so enjoy it while you can. Most importantly, though, at each and every one of our events, we want to make sure that we provide value for your time, which is your most valuable resource. I have to ask, is anyone here getting any younger? I didn't think so. So when you invest your valuable time to come to our events, we want to make sure that you maximize your ROI. We have many, many partners that help us do what we do, law firms, venture capital firms, angel investor groups, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, lots of other players in Silicon Valley. Tonight, once again, we're grateful to Perkins Coie for hosting us at this beautiful venue and providing us with an awesome moderator. So once again, let's hear it for the law firm of Perkins Coie. A few of our other partners are here tonight. I would like to have them come up and say a few words. First off, let's hear it for SVI Hub and Serdar. Applause.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Serdar, and I'm running one of the incubators in Sunnyvale, which is called SVI Hub. It's one of the new co-working spaces as well. We offer some office solutions to the startups and founders. We do have different membership, like private offices, dedicated seats, flex seats, and co-working space. As well as offering office solutions, we also offer some other services such as business development, accelerator, corporate innovation. And by the way, next Tuesday, we have an event at our space about product market fit. Everybody's also invited to that event. It's svihub.com. Thank you so much.
Right, next up we have Laptop Radio and Michelle. Applause.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am on Wednesdays at on Laptop Radio, which is my show on KZSU 90.1 FM Stanford. I have a show about tech, so I talk about games, gamification, blockchain, AI. Just did a whole 3 episode on employment and labor law for startups, interviewing someone from Perkins Coie. That was super awesome. So you can find Laptop Radio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. So check it out. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Coldwell Banker and Rahat. Applause.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rahat Subadar. I've been practicing real estate here in Silicon Valley for a while. And I'm a firm believer that you need good information to make good decisions. If you're contemplating any real estate decisions, please feel free to reach out to me as a resource. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Happiness Factors and Anita. Applause.
Thank you, Rob. This is Anita from Happiness Factors. And Happiness Factors was found on the concept that we want to eradicate any death by suicide which is due to emotional unwellness. At Happiness Factors, we provide emotional wellness tools and techniques based on NLP, hypnotherapy, MER, psychology, and we not just make you happy, but we help you sustain it without the use of drugs, marijuana, or alcohol. If you would like to find out more about it, please contact me. And we are also looking for some marketing and some technical folks. So come talk to me if you are interested in making the difference in the emotional wellness across the globe and at the same time making some stock options out of it. Have a nice day.
All right. Though our local mission in Silicon Valley is to support entrepreneurs here locally in the Valley, our global mission is to democratize entrepreneurship and innovation all around the world. To that end, we maintain a robust YouTube channel, youtube.com/idea.toipo. We've got tons of videos there. Check it out. We've documented and archived many of our events, and this rich, valuable content is available on demand, anytime, anywhere, totally free of charge. Whether you're in Palo Alto, San Francisco, New York, LA, Maui, Moscow, or Timbuktu. Our partner in this endeavor is Tim Jeggers of Jeggers Films, one of the top professional videographers in Silicon Valley. So let's give it up for Tim. Applause.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. This is a hot mic. So I'll be quick. I'm Tim Jeggers. I've been doing multimedia production all around the Bay Area for the last 10 years or so. I specialize in videography. I also do photography, web development, everything from pre-production to actual production and post-production. So any questions regarding content creation, feel more than free to reach out to me. If I don't have the answers, I can definitely point you to the people that do. And I'm looking forward to a good chat. If this many people are here, these guys must have something interesting to say. Thanks for having us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's the schedule for the rest of the evening. Our special guest and moderator will go into their fireside chat. Audience members, hold your questions until 8 p.m. At that point, we're going to open it up to audience questions. We're going to form a line here. We'd like you to use the microphone. We'll take as many questions as possible. That'll take us to 8:30 p.m. At that point, we're going to end the formal program. We do have a raffle, and I got this book last week at the CMX Summit, Turn the Impossible into the Inevitable, Story 10X by Michael Margolis. It's a pretty awesome book. So we'll pass around the bowl again if you haven't had a chance to enter that raffle. So that's at 8:30 p.m. You can stick around, network, socialize, and connect. As a courtesy to Perkins Coie, we would like to leave the building by 9 p.m. We might have an after party somewhere, maybe the Rosewood, we'll see. So without further ado, I would like to pass it off to our awesome moderator and our unbelievable special guest. So let's hear it for Jim Brenner and George Zachary. Applause.
Thank you very much. This is hot. Just really quickly, for those who don't know, Perkins Coie, we're a national law firm. We're across the country of over 1,000 lawyers. We specialize from everything from M&A to labor law to regulatory advice. Here in Silicon Valley, this office particularly focuses on emerging company and venture capital. That's what I specialize in, and patent and privacy. So that's the pitch here. With me, I got George Zachary from CRV. George, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just to get the audience familiar with your background and where you're from, and we can get going.
So, thank you for having me. My name's George Zachary, and I'm with a firm called CRV. CRV's been around since 1970, and we're on our 17th fund. So I'm merely one of 10 people that are running the firm right now. We're kind of in our third group of people that are running the firm. We actually have a constitution. Most people don't know that. So CRV, we're focused on basically funding enterprise, consumer, and bio companies. I actually run the bio practice. I used to run parts of the consumer and enterprise business as well. For myself, I've been in venture capital for now almost 26 years, and I was a company founder 3 times, co-founder. I'm the co-founder of Shutterfly, which is a publicly traded company, and 2 other companies, one which went bust, and I had no money and was personally bankrupt. That was the company before Shutterfly, and another company before that, where my friend was the co-founder, and we sold to another company. We were a public company. So that's a little bit about me from a work perspective. I grew up in New York. My parents were immigrants from Greece, and I never expected to have this job ever.
Just so we can gear the conversation the right way, how many people here are entrepreneurs? Right? How many of you have companies that are have been funded? How many of you are looking for funding? Almost everybody. All right. How many of you are not entrepreneurs but executives, or just here to see what's going to happen tonight? Just all right. Well, you guys better buckle up. All right. So George, you and I were talking. I know recently you switched to biotech. Do you want to deal a little bit about that history for what? Because I know historically you were a consumer. You're one of the earlier investors in Twitter. And you switched to biotech. Do you want to give a little bit of why and what you see, why you think bioengineering and biotech is important, and what sort of drove you to start looking at that?
Yeah, most of my investing career has been focused on giving the individual more power. So I've always kind of believed in that. I've actually been doing computing since I was 12 years old in 1977. And I'll skip what I was doing, but it was always focused around giving the individual more power. That's actually how I was actually the original investor in the company that precedes Twitter, and then I was one of the original investors in Twitter. The story was actually about people having individual power, but the vision wasn't really the global vision that it was. So my investments have always been a series of kind of empowering the individual theses. Then in about 2015, just completely coincidentally, on kind of a checkup, my doctor said, "Oh, you have this kind of large tumor, and you need to get an MRI." So that was pretty scary because it was basically the size of my fist. It was right next to my hip, and I couldn't even feel it. So going through that entire process, I kind of saw lots of people who had no idea and would just kind of listen to the doctor or the center they were in and didn't know what to do. So I kind of told myself that if I actually really survived this, I would do something to try to help people. So after getting this large tumor taken out of me and them telling me, "Oh, it's benign," and we can't actually classify what kind of tumor this is. Thank you, UCSF, for removing this. It took about 6 months off, and then I started the bio practice, which was very daunting because I don't have a bio education. So I hired someone who's fantastic in bio, and we got started. And that was about 3 years ago now.
And going back to your original thesis, how do you see, what are you looking for in biotech to empower the individual? Or where do you see the market going that where individuals need to be powered? I know we all kind of understand the healthcare system doesn't give a lot of power to individuals, but where are you focusing?
Yeah, well, there's no way that I can change the healthcare system. That's kind of where I came at it.
Why do you think that? Because I think that's, everyone's focused on trying to change, at least I see a lot of clients trying to focus on changing the healthcare system. Why do you think that's not either something for you or the markets are able to do?
I think it's going to be really difficult and capital inefficient to do it. I feel like there's way better value that can get created by fundamental innovations in technology. And I think there will be new platforms that come about that radically change people's lives. Like hugely, that people are not expecting. So that's why I kind of headed down that route.
Okay. And where, do you care to give us any previews of where those platforms are coming from, or that you start seeing the edges of?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this just briefly when I walked in.
Right.
But I'm an investor in a company called System One, and I got involved there because they're helping people with central nervous system diseases like Alzheimer's and epilepsy. And up until now, people have been testing these diseases in mice, or studying people's brains who have passed away. So they haven't been able to test drugs in living humans until slightly too late. The company basically takes stem cells from people who have these diseases, cultures them, and basically creates neural tissues. So these are like small brain organoids. And the neurons basically start communicating with one another and firing. And all of a sudden you have this small brain organoid. As I mentioned in the New York Times, there was an article about, are these small brain organoids actually thinking? So that's a question for a different time. Yeah. But one of the things we do is we basically take these neural tissues, put them in a dish, and then we're using high-speed robotics and a whole bunch of data science. We're testing thousands of drugs, actually about 1,000 right now, of on-label, off-label drugs and natural products against specific types of diseases to see if any of these types of compounds will work. So this will cut down the amount of time, this will cut down the amount of money that we can use to find solutions to some of these diseases. So it's a combination of computer science, a combination of robotics, using an innovation platform, a new innovative platform, which is actually people's neural tissue. So the place where this is touching on, which is something that I'm super interested in, is the brain as a platform. And for me, this is going to be the most revolutionizing concept that we're going to see that's well past the phone, which will be your brain as the platform.
Do you mind expanding on that a little bit? What do you mean by the brain as a platform? I know you explained a little bit to me earlier, but for the audience benefit, what do you, when you think of that, what does that mean to you?
Well,
I know it's a challenging question.
No, I guess the simplest way to put it, and it might sound absolutely nuts, is that it's right now there are methods to instrument parts of the brain to get signals out of the brain. And there are some experiments being made in academia and actually 2 private companies to basically conduct signals between the brain and the outside world, between computing devices. And one of these companies that my friend owns is basically using this system as a method to connect humans and artificial intelligence to deal with unfriendly artificial intelligence in the future. His name is Elon Musk, so probably most of you know him. Actually, he was the first person that I worked on. His first company is the first company that I worked on in the venture business. And Elon and I both had the same thesis around on basically brain integration with computing devices. His is focused more on stopping bad AI from hurting humans. Mine is really focused on helping humans actually with integrating parts of their body that have been destroyed or severed, like their spinal cord. But I think what we'll see pretty quickly is the brain actually being used to, like, for simple things like instant messaging or automatic recognition of people walking down the street. So
I no longer excuse for a wife why I didn't text her for today. It was just, why didn't you think of me, and we'll go out.
yeah, I mean, if you I mean, we can already get signals from your visual cortex of what you're seeing. So if we can take the signals of what you're seeing and refine them, there needs to be really good definition and refining of the definition right now. Then it's possible to look up who those people are using the vast database of people's faces that we have right now, and to identify people walking down the street towards you. I mean, you could say this is dystopian, but it also provides people a sense of safety.
Yeah. And for these types of brain as a platform, how do you think of scale? Like when you think of how this thing is going to scale, what are you thinking? Are you thinking consumer? Are you thinking enterprise? Or is it just something completely different?
Well, my interest is basically people's health. So, but this is going to become, I think, over the next 20, 30 years, effectively the platform. I mean, the phone is a proxy because you hold it to your head and you look at it like here. You look at it here. But why? Why should it be something you hold in your hand and look at here?
So instead, it's just going to be complete, just download into your brain. It's going to be different.
You know,
Different intake experience.
Yeah, it'll be a lot faster. So, I mean, would I invest in a company that's doing this now? Well, if they had breakthrough technology, yeah, but I don't really see that much for brain as a platform for messaging. What we're looking for right now is the preceding technology of companies that could end up doing this.
The seeds of those technologies going forward, yeah.
But, you know, I can see companies that are touching on this happening, like System 1, right? Where, okay, now in a dish, we've got neural tissue that's of neurons that have now started to communicate on their own when we've never tried to get them to communicate on their own. In academia, there's basically a group of professors saying they're measuring brain waves between neurons and questioning whether these brain organoids are actually thinking.
Some ethical questions there.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, the question is a brain organoid really a brain? Because it's just it's a bunch of tissue. So.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a biologist. So.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, that's a good question, right? And, you know, another area that I'm focused on is I'm closing an investment right now in a cell-based, because I can't say what the company does exactly, but it's in a cell-based animal meat company. I can't say exactly what kind of meat, but I don't eat, it's not beef, and it's not chicken. So there aren't that many other versions.
It's pork.
It's not pork either. So, and one of the reasons why it's super important is that the oceans are getting more and more contaminated. It's not in anyone's interest to kind of clean up the ocean. And the way, basically, it's quite interesting. Another thing here that's really interesting for me is that the derivation of this animal meat product comes from the original egg cell of the fish product. And then it just basically is being kept in perpetuity and growing. and it's not really the animal, or it's, I can't say exactly what it is, but it's not really the animal, it's a bunch of cells. So, you know, we have 2 people in our partnership who are vegan. They're like, well, can I actually eat this? Because it's not really an animal.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, meanwhile, while there's Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods that are basically built off of conventional ingredients, there'll be a new wave of cell-based meat products. And these are not genetically modified products.
Is that, I mean, obviously that's, you don't have to answer this question, but is that, once again, is that something they can scale to a level where it's actually going to be something that I know that's the hope, but do you see
Yeah.
them being able to scale it to a level that actually is like, can reach all of everyone's plates? Or is it something that it's this cool thing, but it's going to be a touch to a next, like sort of, it's like the seeds of the next big thing?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the investing risk. So, you know, I invested because I think they can get through that. And certainly the company has shown a history of success in being able to scale at various points and being super capital efficient. So if they can't get through it, I lose all my money. Or just,
Well, let's not hope that happens.
well, yeah, or they end up selling the technology to someone else. But I think they can, and in the diligence, a bunch of people who are experts in biology and production really think that they can do it. So,
let's hope they can.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting to get to not have to worry about where our meat is coming from anymore.
well, yeah, I mean, the ocean's full of pollution. Every fish that we now eat has some level of toxin in it.
I was reading that
With
the amount of microplastics that we eat is something that would scare most of us.
Yeah, far more dangerous is the amount of lead and cadmium, because microplastics might not wind up inside of us because it's debatable whether they do, but lead and cadmium basically do wind up in our tissues. And for kids, they're particularly bad for their brains. For us, they're particularly bad for just overall toxicity and CNS diseases. So no one's going to clean up the ocean soon. It's just not going to happen. The microplastics thing is a small part of it, but the heavy metals portion is a much bigger part, specifically with fertilizer runoff.
So changing gears for a second.
Yeah.
Let's play hypothetical.
Yeah.
Say I was an entrepreneur, and I had some bioengineering company, and I wanted to get your attention. What are you looking for from your like your Series A stage investor, your Series A stage companies to really get your interest?
Yeah. Well, every day is like I open my email and there's a lot of email. And yeah, there's 20 emails that come that are just random.
Someone who found you on the internet.
Well,
or-
no, there's like, I'd say 20 through 40 that show up that have nothing to do with what I invest in. You know, there's like condos in Australia. I'm not being ridiculous.
No, I believe it.
And so it's just a mass blanketing. So I don't even respond to those any longer. I used to, but I don't. Because they don't even take the time to even figure out what I'm doing. So,
Right.
then the other ones that I really don't like is where the founders use a broker to get to me. And the broker I don't know. It's like some unknown person saying, oh, I'm raising money for this company. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. So, but I'll reply to that person. But it's lower down on the stack. So people who I trust, I'll reply to first, because if I don't reply to their emails, then I'll be in trouble with them. So basically with friends of mine that are doing cool things, I'll pay attention to them. With founders of our companies who suggest someone, I'll immediately pay attention to their stuff. respected people industry. I'll pay attention to their stuff. I can only really process 1 or 2 new companies a day because I like to think about what the company does. So every day I kind of quickly look through and I'm like, which one seems to me exciting? That one. Okay, I'm not paying attention to the rest. So I'd say by the end of the week, there's like 3 or 4 companies that I might be interested in or might find interesting. And by Monday, if I remember any of them, I bring it up with someone. If I don't remember any of them, I just go back and send someone a message saying thanks, but I'm not excited about what you're doing. And I'd say the majority of every Monday, I'm sending those emails saying thanks, but I'm not really excited. So for me, a lot of it is, do I feel excited? I've always made my investments based on this intuitive feeling of, do I feel excited? And if I don't invest. But it has to start that way.
That kind of begs the question, though. What gets you excited?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I mean, for me, I mean, people ask me that, or they ask me like, what can I do to make it exciting? It's like, I don't know.
It's the gut, right?
Yeah. It's my best decisions have been ones that I kind of knew right away, but they always haven't been great decisions that I knew right away or acted on quickly. So I would say founders who can state a vision that's a big vision that is specific and very broad to the world and controversial. I like a controversial story where people say, that's a crazy idea and it's dumb, and other people say, that's a great idea. Anything that's kind of like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. And I'm like, that's not a really good idea because too many people have thought about it. So I like controversial ideas that are big. That's, for me, anything that's where too many people are kind of, where if it seems obvious, then it's not really a place I want to invest.
Spaceship to Mars. Controversial, probably not up your alley, though.
Well, it's past the our horizon of our fund. That's the issue. Our fund life is about 10 years, so it's not 30.
I think you can do it in 10.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm an optimist.
Yeah. So anyway, to answer your question more succinctly, so I'll tell you a story. So I was the biggest investor in a company called PillPack that Amazon acquired, and what they did is they package pills and prescriptions for the 40 and above set, and into little plastic packs, and so people know when they should take their Lipitor and their thyroid drug at what time, and they don't have to go to CVS, they don't have to go to Walgreens. It gets shipped to their home in prearranged packs. They don't have to put things into those little pill dispensers.
It's a pre-packed pill dispenser for them with times or whatnot.
Yeah, in little plastic pouches per day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I knew that the average amount of prescriptions was above 3 for everyone above 50 in the U.S. That's like the average. So, and I knew that from people in my family. So basically, I instantly knew it was a good idea. I knew there was a big market. I met the founder. We got along fantastically well in the first 5 minutes. His family was in the pharmacy business for 30 years. His dad was in it. He worked at the pharmacy. And he just embodied everything about pharmacy as a service to people, as opposed to selling Z-Pack. So he knew that pharmacy was about making people's lives better versus just selling a drug. So it was very easy for him to talk about all the future features of what they were going to do. So when Amazon bought the company, I have a friend of mine who's on the board who kind of fed back to me. Amazon basically said, we love this team because they're focused on people and what they want to do, and it's so easy for us to buy the company. So it was that first meeting with the founder that basically I knew in the first hour I wanted to invest. So yeah, I wrote the biggest check of my life, which was $30 million at that point, and the biggest check from our firm ever.
That was the biggest check CRV's ever written.
Yeah,
Hold on tight.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we committed like in 4 days. So, but the other twist on this that I want to put is that as an investor, I kind of knew this market while other firms struggled and went slower on diligence. They had, some associates and principals that were 30, 35 years old that were working on this. So it took them longer to wrap their heads. Like, I got feedback from the founders afterwards who said, how many people take 3 prescriptions? Like, people above 50 take like diabetes medication, like 3 of them, and like blood pressure medication. Like, how many people are there like this? So in the amount of time that it took the associates and the principals and the junior partner maybe to take 3 weeks to due diligence and, potentially irritate the founders with a lot of little questions, I just was easy for me to close the deal. Now, I'm sure there's other companies that I know there are that I've missed the investment on because I didn't understand exactly what the company does. And my point in saying all this stuff is that some investors will understand what you're doing because it's their background and they get it, and other investors will just completely not get it. Completely not.
Right. My clients always discover the ones that get, investors that get what they're doing really quickly tend to be the best relationships they have.
Yeah. That's right. I think you hit the nail on the head, which is investors that understand things pretty quickly are usually the best ones to go after. Not the ones that send like 22 balloons and 3 cakes and other stuff in the sales process.
And I think when you lead, you normally take a board seat, or how involved do you get with your clients?
I've taken board seats for every one of my companies with the exception of one where I'm a board observer.
And what role do you normally see yourself playing on the board? Because I know different VCs see themselves in different positions, or it depend on the company itself.
Well, it matters in the company and who my other board members are and what their skills are. I'm particularly good at recruiting and organizational issues. It's a good way of putting it. And overall business strategy. So I usually kind of play that role. And now that I've actually had a substantial amount of time in the business, I usually get pulled into the role of terminating co-founders or the CEO, because I'm the person on the board with the most experience.
Yeah, those are never fun times.
No.
Yeah, I've been through those myself.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to be the youngest person on the board that always watched the oldest person on the board do this, and now I'm like, oh my God, I'm now the oldest person on the board that everyone's deflecting this to. So,
And
no one wants to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Do you see a trend, or things more often than not, like how CEOs end up in that position where they're about to be let go, or is it normally?
yeah, I won't go into specific company names,
Right.
but there was one of my companies was doing really well on the revenue side, but there was employees that were unhappy, and I knew it because a bunch of them were sending me emails from fake email addresses that all had different handwriting or different lexical descriptions of what was going on.
Call that a fist, a different
And
fist.
they were like, our CEO sucks, please, like, screwing up the company in these ways. And I knew that it was people in the company because the way they were describing things were very specific. And I could just tell that the person had no idea of what they were doing running the company. And as the company was getting bigger and bigger on revenue, their magnitude of error was just increasing. And I don't know, I've run a bunch of projects and managed a bunch of things, and I was the original CEO for Shutterfly. I recruited our first real CEO So, you know, it was easy for me to see that this person was not capable of being a CEO. I mean, the number one thing, I mean, there's some things about being a CEO. The number one thing is it's not about management, it's about being a great leader. It's about leadership is number one. Having a vision that you can basically articulate into specific products is number two. And, you know, number three is basically an enthusiastic creativity about what the business is around the end user. And a lot of times CEOs will start to lack that at a certain point. It's usually that most founders kind of make it, but a lot of times the people who don't make it are the CEOs that they bring in. Because a lot of times founders bring in CEOs, and those CEOs kind of just run out of gas.
Do you normally see, for this one example, you don't have to name it, was it something that the CEO, if he was more aware, could have helped prevent or gotten or done something about, or is it just?
No, the person was just in way over their head, and they didn't have enough product operations. They had a lot of operational history, but they didn't have enough product in their background, and the company was scaling to the point where you needed to have a lot of product background as the product breadth increased in the company. And they didn't. So, and the person was also not really good at dealing with confrontation, and the company had increased in size to hundreds of people. And you have to be able to deal with confrontation. I mean, you have to deal with issues. So I think there's plenty of ways to not be a good CEO, but the best way to be a great CEO is be a great, it's about being a leader. It's easy for me to see when someone is being a great leader. And part of being a great leader, by the way, is you can actually conduct a great financing. I mean, as you know, CEOs have to almost continuously fundraise. And if they can't sell the company, they probably can't sell internally the things that the company has to do. And when I say sell, it's really an authentic selling as opposed to kind of like a rah-rah, bogus kind of thing.
It's telling an honest story is what I always tell my clients.
Yeah. So, and I've never seen anyone grow through a coach to become an effective leader. I've tried many times with some great coaches, and it's never happened.
I can second that from my own experience. It doesn't.
Yeah, I wish that it had happened, but it had never happened. So that's one vector, and the second vector is ethical issues. So,
sure, we just pick up Netflix. We can see a couple documentaries on those.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's a famous ethical issue, just the building next door.
Yeah.
So I know you've been in Silicon. You've at least been doing venture capital work for 25 years. Where do you see what's different from when you started? Obviously, we're not as involved in capital markets as we used to be. But what else do you see differently from the culture and just the industry? And then where do you see it going? I mean, I can go on for like 2 hours on this. So
yeah, when I started, it was okay. I'm gonna blurt out a whole bunch of stuff. When I started, it really was 6 white guys with ties on, with jackets on. So like jackets.
yeah.
And if you didn't have like a jacket and a tie on, it was viewed as odd. Almost all of the new investments you would see came from attorneys or counsel. There were no seed firms, like none. The cost of starting a company was extremely high because you had to buy servers, database, PCs. I mean, it was just really expensive. There was no AWS. There was no open source. So to raise a round for a company was extremely difficult at Series A. there were way fewer resources for entrepreneurs. People, like way fewer. Like entrepreneurs didn't know how to approach the venture process. People were not sending me executive summaries or trying to approach me over email because people didn't trust email. So instead, I would get a stack in my office by FedEx of quote unquote business plans, like a stack of them. I had to take a look, read them quickly, and then basically send them back, with a printed letter. Like it was like a daily process of FedEx coming in, FedEx coming out. So that's really different. There were regional investment banks. Those are all gone. They've all been subsumed. I think there's way more information for founders. The balance between founders and investors is way better. There used to be much more disdain between investors and founders. Now, unfortunately, it's gone the other way. And I find it particularly alarming because it leads to cases of where we hear about, well, like the building we had next door issue.
Right.
Where people just say, well, it's just money, so who cares? And there is more of that occurs than not. And publicly, we don't hear about a lot of it because people just shut down the companies or people just fire the person that basically did that thing. So the market's not well balanced, and a lot of that is just the public market's a little bit out of control. But that's the public market. The public market's either kind of in boom mode or bust mode. So you get kind of that reflection of that.
Do you think Silicon Valley is still, at least the venture capital community, how tied are we to the public markets? Because I know it's not like it was 20 years ago when everyone was sort of rushing to the public markets. Now there's a definitely different pace to get there.
So you're saying how tied is it?
Like how cyclical is Silicon Valley tied to the public markets? Because I feel like it's I've seen it sort of it's not as tied to the hip as it used to be. So the market dips.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily feel it the same way that we used to.
There's kind of a 6 month, we don't because we've been in an incredible bull market for like the longest time period ever.
Right.
But before that, there used to be kind of even in 2016, there's a 6 month delay. So venture people tend to debate whether the market's going down, and it doesn't hit their mind until about 6 months later, either on the up or the down. And part of that is related to that venture investors have a 3-year primary investing window until they have to raise a new fund. And that's when they have to face questions from their limited partners. The limited partners are the institutions or really wealthy individuals that invest into venture firms. And those are usually the people that get nervous about the public market because they're also investors in the public market. And they compare their ratio of public market investments to private market investments. And based on asset allocation theory, if the public market goes down, they want to reduce their amount of private market holding, which means that they then want to reduce the amount of money they're putting into venture firms. So venture firms get nervous and then basically pull back on investing. So that whole cycle takes about 6 months to a year. And right now we're in the opposite zone where our limited partners want to give us money, but then now they actually want to invest directly in later stage companies, which I've never seen before. So they're using our firms almost as a seed investment into venture to then do later stage investments into our companies. It's like I've never seen this before.
That's going to make you rethink some things.
Well, yeah, it makes us think, well, are our limited partners almost a version of competition, especially if you have a growth fund.
Right.
So
that's a different direction that we're going.
that's a new thing.
Yeah.
There never was a $200 billion fund like SoftBank, with a huge beam of $200 billion. SoftBank invested, as I mentioned to you, $200 million a month or so ago into one of our companies, which is an insane amount of money and really displaces their competitors. So,
Do you see the possibility for like a second mega fund like that in the valley, or do you think they're just a one-off aberration? You don't have to you don't have to answer that if you don't.
oh
want to.
no, I don't see one as the issue.
Do you think there's room for one, or do you think?
Well, SoftBank's total amount of capital to invest in the Vision Fund is larger than all of early stage venture capital combined.
So the answer is probably it would be extremely disruptive if a second
Yeah.
one showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just the rest of the world and some of corporates' money that went into SoftBank that couldn't get into venture capital. So that's a hugely distorting force on everything.
Probably from valuations into
Well, yeah, you see it because, you
Yeah.
know, SoftBank's investment in WeWork and Uber are like at prices that people are saying are not sustainable.
are they how much are they driving the unicorn market that we've been seeing, or is it more the growth funds that push the valuations that high?
I think, well, I definitely think SoftBank is one of the players that have SoftBank Vision Fund, because SoftBank Vision Fund is different than SoftBank,
Right.
but it's not completely different. It's used as a investment tool by SoftBank. There are some growth funds, and there's the normal investment banks that use opportunities to get their high net worth clients to invest in those companies. And for companies that are starting to accumulate a lot of revenue, people start putting in money at really high prices.
And do you see what do you see differently about those companies once they take those growth funds or those the traditional LPs money or the Vision Fund
Yeah.
money? Do you see change in the operations or change in the sort of the culture at the board level, the rest of the company, or is it still you're very traditional? We're just trying to innovate and make a product that can scale very quick, very fast.
I didn't understand your question.
So how do when you start taking in money from, let's say, more traditional capital market investors,
Yeah.
and they come into the company, do you see changes on how the board would operate if those people weren't involved and weren't
Yeah.
investing?
Yeah, if they're on the board, it's becomes an issue because then they usually want more specialized terms, and if they're not on the board, those companies usually don't create a big wave in the company, but the company does tend to change because people realize there's way more capital available. I mean, people end up getting sloppier with spending money, and people's salaries in general go way up, thus forcing everyone's rent up, and a perpetual cycle of high rent in Silicon Valley.
It's brutal.
Yeah, which drives higher salaries, which
It's a cycle.
Yeah,
It's
I mean-
self-perpetuating.
yeah.
So we have about 5 minutes left. Just in the future, where do you see, when do you guys see this bull market finally ending? I mean,
I wish I knew. I mean, I've been one of the fewer people that have basically thought that it would end 3 years ago.
I was there with you too.
Yeah. I think we still have a while more to run. The valuations of a bunch of tech companies are not completely insane. They're high, but not completely insane.
You think that once you see the valuation starting getting out of control, you think that's going to be a sign of another metric of we're almost there, or do you?
I think when we start to see the front of, websites and news media saying, Dow 50,000 and S&P 5,000, and individuals basically margining their accounts and their homes, which they now think have too much value. that's when we're heading up ballistically into the unsustainable land, and it's when that $1 stock of oversupply can't meet the demand. That's when things turn over and start to reverse and fall the other way. That's what happened in the year 2000. It wasn't that dot-com stocks brought down the market. It was that the market basically had oversupply of overall equity and under demand to buy the equity, and the first casualties were the dot-coms. So just the whole market rolled over.
So you don't see geopolitical forces are pushing us towards a recession. You think it's more going to be the typical exuberance in the marketplace?
Well, you mean like trade war? Or?
Like a trade war or literal war?
Well, war, yes.
Yeah.
War, yeah. I mean, but it matters what kind of war. I mean, the public market in the U.S. has tended to be stronger with standard wars
Right.
of the U.S.
Right.
With a very large global war, yeah, it would probably sink the market.
What about like a Brexit? Do you think that can have an effect on the U.S. market if Britain can't figure it out?
I'm not really concerned about breakup of Britain leaving the EU or the UK leaving the EU.
Why? Well, care to expand on that? Is it
Well, I think the UK will continue to operate. I think there'll be more legal issues around the UK interacting with the EU, but I don't think economically things will.
it's not going to have a ripple effect across other markets.
I don't think so. I'd be far more worried if Italy collapsed, and then Germany would have to change how they manage the euro. I mean, Germany needs a low euro to basically sell goods to the U.S. I mean, the majority of Germany's GDP comes from exports, or I think it's over half,
Do you think this?
which means you need a low euro.
Right.
So, if Italy goes kaput, then you need Germany basically to figure out what to do with the euro.
That's tough.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah. And what about the results of this trade war if it continues on with China? Do you think? How do you see that affecting the U.S. markets other than increased price of goods?
Well, the trade war keeps going on, and the market keeps going up. So
It's
what
counterintuitive.
Well, the thing is, what happens when the trade war, basically, when it gets reversed? When our current government and China say, okay, we're reversing things and we're going to start working together, that's when the market's going to go up ballistically high.
Right. And we see that in the news whenever there's signs that it might come off.
Yeah.
Everyone goes crazy.
Yeah. So I think the market has discounted out any horribleness of the trade war. There's just there's too much interdependence to lead to a massive crater. The massive crater will come from some interconnectedness that is very hard to understand.
It's always something we can totally see with 20/20 hindsight, but
Yeah.
we don't see it until it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, now it's time for audience Q&A. Who's got a question for George? We're going to form a line right here. Come on down. And let's try and ask as many questions as possible. This is not a pitch event, by the way, so please no pitches or thinly veiled pitches. If you do or if you do pitch that's unauthorized, we have a bouncer. Amy, that's our bouncer, so be careful. Firseide, go for it.
You talked about Twitter and tumor. Social media has turned into a tumor with fake news, and they sold our elections. Because you started social media, don't you think it's your responsibility to fix it?
It's a very good question. I mean, when the company was created, I will tell you, with there was, between Facebook and Twitter, it's probably a very different set of visions. Evan and Jack, there was actually a couple of the co-founders who disappeared from the company and had nothing to do with the company. There was 4 people that put the product vision together of the company. And the reason why the product has never changed is because the 2 other co-founders actually left the company, not of their own accord. And the product's never changed because it's not just Jack Dorsey who has the idea for the product. So the only real thing that's kind of occurred is kind of retweet and like. That's been the innovation. No one really knows how to fix it. Originally, Evan thought it would be like, I remember being in the room, Evan thought it would be the RSS of SMS, and Jack thought it would be a great way to figure out how to go find people to go have dinner and go meet at a bar. I'm not kidding. Neither Jack nor Evan thought it would become what it is now. I would say the company has almost no ability to control or know the amount of bots that are getting created. And one of the issues has been looking into people's messaging activity and whether they would do that, and how much of a privacy invasion that would be. The government actually has the right to actually look at everyone's direct messages. The company does not, by the terms of service. And one of the ways they could actually determine if something was a robot was to look at people's direct messages, and they decided to not do that because it would break the terms of service and be something bad that the users wouldn't like. So they have no real idea of how to solve it in terms of on the Twitter side. They keep trying to put out patches on how to solve it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wasn't the person who put together the product, so yeah, authentication is a big issue. I mean, if we authenticate everyone, I don't know how everyone feels about that personally in the United States, but we can't authenticate everyone. So
There'd just be another form of ID to carry around and for people to hack.
All right.
well, yeah,
Next question.
it's the right question.
Hello. So
Hi.
I have a question regarding applied research versus business model from the point of view of venture capital. Basically, let's say you come across of some basic research that patent ready and have a very wide application field on artificial intelligence in this case, but I suppose that's generic. How would you recommend the leadership of the company approach that? Because you can always find some niche, some way to apply that research that may look very promising on the short term. But the truth is that if it has a very, very wide appeal, it's not clear at all how to move forward and make it available to such a huge market from the point of view of starting with a small company. Thank you.
So just so I understand your question clearly, it is if you have kind of an AI research that you've create or done,
Yeah.
and there's been development from it, how do you attract an investor to potentially fund it because it's so kind of global in nature?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very general, very
Yeah.
generic.
So one of the most important things is in the summary and in the slide deck is to talk about what business and what solution you're trying to solve for that market. If it basically says it's, a whole bunch of different solutions for a whole bunch of different businesses, or it's a market that, that is so huge, but it's a solution that requires a lot of development dollars. People sometimes in my business call that boiling the ocean solution because it needs so much energy to accomplish. That would be a mistake. So I think what you need to do is just come up with what the solution is for a very large market and describe the market and how you can get started with a very small atomic product. Doesn't have to be small, but the atomic product that you could start selling within, let's say, a year of being funded, if it's software.
Thank you very much.
Great. So going to Mars was mentioned, but you're not really in that, you're more in the biotech. Besides communication and imaging, do you see the biotech market looking at new space for opportunities and innovation as well?
Yeah, I have 12-year-old twins. If they were in college now, and they had a choice between computer science and bio, I'd tell them definitely go into bio. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mentioned System 1 before, and my cell-based, non-beef, non-pork, non-chicken animal meat company. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things occurring on the bio side. There's another one of my companies that is basically an inhalable little set of nanoparticles that are organic and detect up to 500 diseases, and you basically end up peeing out an enzyme that basically tells you what kind of disease you have.
But do you see any of those biotech companies looking for doing their research in space or development in space or manufacturing in space? Not necessarily going to Mars, but using it as a platform.
Meaning like a la pharma companies doing that?
Yeah.
I haven't seen any pharma companies looking to do that. What I see is pharma companies basically looking to shorten their product development cycles and improve manufacturing. Manufacturing is kind of an issue.
Hi, this is Rishikesh from Western Digital. Can you comment about the sustainability aspect of your non-chicken, non-pork meat solution?
Yes.
Yes.
So
meat is usually 15 times resource intensive compared to vegetarian or vegan diet. So can you comment about that?
So we don't think that the majority of people will switch to vegan. Or being a vegetarian. So we think over the next 20 years, roughly, that the majority of people will switch to some type of product like this or use some kind of product like this. So, and that the word vegan and vegetarian might start to get redefined as well. So that's why, we can argue what's actually technically better for you. And some of the research we've done shows that being a vegan actually is much healthier for you than a vegetarian. Your potential longevity is way higher being a vegan than a vegetarian. It's actually because of animal proteins. But getting people to be a vegan is very difficult. So we don't expect that to change in the next 20 years. So, and I'm an investor on the 10 to 20 year cycle, not the 50-year cycle.
I was more interested in understanding the sustainability impact of it, in the sense how much more resource intensive your solution is compared to the real meat.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't tell you exactly how we do it, but I can tell you that we use very little media and energy to produce this type of product. We use basically all normal kind of organic proteins and carbohydrates, and it's to basically feed these cells, and the cells basically live in perpetuity. We don't put anything out into the ocean, or we basically develop the cells in a reactor. and we can actually do it in room temperature at 72 degrees. So we don't need a lot of heat or energy for cooling. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Oh yeah, I know them well.
Hi, my name is
Yeah.
my name is Raji. I'm a director of products at Accrue Software. And by the way, really interesting comment on vegetarianism and vegan. I'm trying to convert to be a vegan, and it's been hard. So my question is about you made a really interesting comment about brain as a platform and tying it into AI. You also made some comments about ethics and how that influences your investment decisions. So I was trying to understand how that plays in the context of your investment decisions with respect to AI specifically, the role of ethics.
Oh, well, some of it comes from the founder. So a lot of the time we have no idea what will happen with the end product or end technology that gets created. And so when we sit around myself and my partners sit around thinking about making investment, we're like, well, it could get used for this, this, and this. And then we don't actually know whether it would. So what we're counting on is the people or person who are the founders. Like, do we believe in them? Do they have good intentions? And that's about the most we can do. But most of this technology we've seen on the bio side will be equally as dangerous as positive for people. So it's something that we think about, but we don't have any control on. And I would say that biotechnology and next generation bioengineering is a huge risk. Like, for example, people can engineer specific bioweapons to target people that have a certain type of DNA from certain areas of the world. So, I mean, yeah, but if someone can do 23andMe and understand that your background comes from a certain part of the world, you can basically then weaponize a virus or a bacteria to target people with that ancestry. So.
Yeah, difficult question. Thanks for your thoughts.
Hi, Zachary. Hey, my name is Deep. George Zachary. Yes. Thanks. So, years ago, I used to run an innovation hub at Berkeley and Stanford in clean energy, like 12 years ago. But since then, I'm taking care of aging parents. I've spent 9 years of my life through cancer, dementia, diabetes, heart disease, osteoporosis, a bunch of different diseases. So I've stuck my foot into this. As I read recently, you also were in the process. When you decided to switch towards healthcare, is your goal really to help the end patient who's sitting there in the hospital going, OMG, I have no idea what to do, and to help them have a better experience and a better outcome? What's your why behind the switch? I'm really curious to know that.
Well, that is the why. But I came to the conclusion that I wouldn't be good at investing in service companies that could change the overall services. Nor did I have enough networks and relationships in the whole political sphere and in the payer sphere to affect that, and I didn't really understand it. But I did have good networks and relationships, and I enjoyed the science and engineering side. So I kind of went in that direction. And I saw the potential effects and magnitude effects to be way greater on that side. So that's why I kind of went on the science and technology route instead of the services route. Through being involved in PillPack, I saw the insanity that PillPack had to be involved with in terms of the other players. So when PillPack was bought by Amazon, almost all the intermediate players lost $14 billion of market cap because people kind of figured out, okay, Amazon may be just going directly to the pharma companies directly instead of with all this intermediate layer.
It's super fragmented and
Yeah.
the entire process, and people many times they feel like if a senior especially is in the hospital and they don't have an advocate, a family
Yeah.
member or something, they're just lost. And,
Yeah.
and I feel like that.
This is the other side.
My
of it.
mom's a nurse for 50 years, and still when we go to the doctor, I feel like, it's like we're being pushed around. And if you ask any questions, people start asking you, are you a doctor? And it's sort of like you can't even stand up and protect your own family members and do what's best for them. And we've been kicked out of 3 doctor offices already for asking too many questions.
I understand this personally.
So I'm really happy to have met you. Thank you. I'll chat with you afterwards. Thanks, George.
Hi, I'm Manasa. I'm an engineer with Uber. I have 2 questions, and if you want to answer only one, that's cool. First one, do you think we should have any changes in our education system to meet the demands of how much we could do, and for the next generation to actually lead a happy and healthy life? The second question is, from your experience of funding so many startups, what were the common qualities of those that were successful and not successful? Thank you.
Okay. Which one's more important?
The education.
Okay. So your question specifically around education is what?
What do you think we should change? Because I feel like we're creating next generation of people who would be like, okay, I want to grow up and work for something.
Yeah.
But
I would think, access globally to really high quality education is super important, because right now it's heavily concentrated in a group of universities that have brand, and a lot of people globally can't afford these or geographically can't get to them. So I think that will have the biggest impact worldwide on people.
So making it accessible to a wider group?
Yeah. So I'm an investor in a company called Udacity. I was the original investor. And the founder there is a guy named Sebastian Thrun, who used to be the director of AI at Stanford. He developed the self-driving car at Stanford originally. He was the original self-driving car person. And Udacity's focus is on education, global education. But originally, he put together a test and around AI. And his thesis is he had an idea of, will the rest of the world score as well as my grad students? So he put the test out to 160,000. Actually, 160,000 students took the test worldwide. He had actually a lot of students test so highly they would have tested more highly than any of his grad students.
Got it.
And these were people in not desirable parts of, some of them were in not desirable parts of the world. So there's no way they would have ever gotten to Stanford.
Would that be on the governments, or how do we go about making it?
Well, part of it was online. I mean, for these people to learn online, and part of it is price. Part of it is ability for people to have online access. Part of it is to combine online and in-presence access. So it's like new models of education that don't require necessarily a 4-year degree, and it also involves kind of like being able to learn in chunks over your entire life. And this is especially true because the overall world population is going to be living longer, so people will have to continue learning.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm very curious. I come from a brain-computer interface background. I did academic research for many, many years. And in the academic community, we are very amused by the amount of money that's being thrown at BCI companies that are making claims that are not justified by science at all, including Facebook F8. That was a huge joke. And I would even say Neuralink. I mean, some of the things are completely unworkable. they're dangerous. So I'm curious, why do investors and smart people apparently keep throwing money at dumb ideas?
Well, that is a good question, because people think in one, in an area of dumb that one of them will work. So, the history of venture shows that that a lot of dumb stuff that something will work, and people will just grasp on, okay, this is a super interesting area, so I'll invest in this one area and something will work. Or I'll invest in this one area and I'll meet interesting people and they'll leave, and then I'll have a chance to invest in their company. And that happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. I mean, we all believe that brain-computer interfaces will happen.
Yeah.
Most of the academics don't believe it'll happen in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's a question of timing and, making claims that can be backed by the state of science at that point in time.
Yeah. So the question then is, what's your definition of interface? I mean, for what type of usage or what type of use? I mean, there's the Neuralink definition of, I'm going to interface to basically beat bad AI. But then there's also the use of, okay, I'll help, I'll deal with a severed nerve.
Yeah, the BCI has been very useful in the prosthetic space.
Prosthetics, yeah.
Right, and where people have, or epilepsy, where they have a reason to take out, do a brain surgery and implant stuff. It has been done for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
But the AI aspect, I founded a company. We started off with EEG caps as our interface, and it was in the self-driving car space.
Yeah.
But very quickly we understood that this is completely unworkable, even though it gets investors excited. So we just took the EEG part out and interface using the natural senses that we have. You can have a video camera, improve the AI in that, and then figure out what's happening in the brain using, by parsing video, body, I can make up a picture of what you're thinking, to a certain degree by just observing your body language.
Yeah.
So there are different ways of doing things.
Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would say that venture tends to be on the front end of the skis of bullshit. Is the best way of
I don't think I've ever heard it said better.
Yeah. So, but that's also what funds some stuff that sooner or later becomes innovation. But a lot at the front just is of companies are just become fodder for the rest of it. So a lot of the losses in venture capital end up leading to more innovation sooner or later. It's, in a way, it's like those losses are active losses for the rest of innovation to occur. But it can occur for a long time, the losses.
All right, next question.
Hey, George, thank you very much for your time today. Question for you. So you said that you're you're active sometimes, unfortunately, in letting go CEOs or startup CEOs. Would love to understand from you, when it comes to hiring on an executive team, do you have any influence, or do your colleagues have any influence in choosing the people that get hired on?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing we have to develop is a spec for the position. So if we're looking for a VP of sales or a VP of marketing or, VP of engineering or VP of product, I mean, chief scientific officer, chief science officer, a head of operations. So we just break down what kind of person we need, what their spec is. So we first start from there. And if we're lucky enough and know someone that could fit it, that's usually the best thing. But that frequently never happens. Maybe once I'd say 10% of the time, or 5% of the time. Then we usually have a recruiter that usually knows the right set of candidates, and then we can basically start a search for kind of the right candidate. We're usually involved based on the level of the person. So,
So I'm an aspiring, I want to be a marketing executive for a startup in the Valley. What are some of the qualities that you typically look for in top line executives, and how do you influence the executive team to choose those qualities?
Yeah, so recruiters will usually look for people, like if you want to be a VP of marketing, recruiters will usually go out and find people who are senior directors of marketing as a potential VP of marketing. So being at a high growth company as a senior director of marketing is the best way to get a job as a VP of marketing. So I would say if you want to work at a startup, then having a job as a director or senior director of marketing at a high growth company like a startup would be best, especially if it's in the company's area. And it matters when you want to join the startup as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
I hope I'm the last question. Oh my gosh. I was wondering if you had any experience with female-founded companies, all female-founded companies, and do you see a different pattern of leadership structure with them versus all male founded companies? And if so, can you describe it? If not, can you list in priority order what your expectations are from a CEO, and or what you look for, what hands-on skills you look for a CEO in a company?
Okay. Well, yeah, my company Glimpse Bio, which is on the East Coast, was started by a great person. Her name's Sangeeta Bhatia, and she's a triple professor at MIT, and incredibly smart in tissue engineering. And she wanted to start the company. She didn't want to be the CEO because she's super involved in research. So she started the company. I have 2 board members, and they're female. The original investor started one of the biggest biogeneric companies in India. Our chief science officer is female, so I'm like, thanks for letting me in your club. So it's really a female-driven bio company. I mean, I would say more so than male. But no one acts any differently there because it's male or female. And
So the structure in leadership
is really the same. It's the same. There's no difference. I mean, we have a CEO, we have a CSO. So it's the same structure. It doesn't really change based on gender.
Can you describe your expectations from a CEO and their hands-on skills that you prefer to see? Like, what would be the number 1, number 2, number 3?
Yeah. So we recruited Carolyn Lowe there as the CEO. So Carolyn's fantastic. She's one of the best CEOs I've ever had the pleasure of working with in my 25 years. So Carolyn is just a natural-born leader. She's very clear in her mind about what the company does, creative in terms of how she can turn what the company does into a much bigger story. She's got a lot of poise under pressure, a lot. And you can never really tell that she's anxious about anything, even when cash was dry or low or anything. She's really good at managing the company's operations along kind of the science side of things, around kind of the engineering side of operations, around working with the FDA, because this is a bio company. So she's really multifaceted in not just management and operations, but really, basically, she's just a natural leader, and it's great because I don't have to worry about anything with this company. And she's just a naturally super high integrity person. It's amazing in what she's created in 9 months. So I'm like so fortunate to have her as the CEO of this company.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it up for George and Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, stay in your seats. It's time for the raffle. This is the book, Story 10X. Has everyone who wanted to enter the raffle already done so? Going once, going twice. Here's your chance. Get this row right there. George, you want to do the honors? Amy George is going to do the honors. Oh, come on. Too late, Michelle. All right. Drum roll, please. George is going to do it. And the winner is...
Kapil Luthra.
Come on down.
And you get your business card back there.
Thank you. Smile for the camera. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the video will be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/idea.toipo within 48 hours. Stick around, network, socialize, connect. As a courtesy to Perkins Coie, we'd like to leave the building by 9 p.m. However, if you want to check out the after party, meet me at the Rosewood. It's Thursday night. Enough said. Thanks for coming. See you next time.